Let's now take you back to one of our top stories where we've been talking about positive economic indicators, be it on the front of inflation or on the front of estimates of growth from world institutions such as IMF as well as Morgan and Stanley. And at the same time, you have two top ministers, one in London and the other in San Francisco, talking not only trade and investment with a wide range of people there, not just their counterparts, but also building India's stature, taking it even higher. We have with us Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, DGRIS for developing countries and a well-known economist. Good evening to you, Professor. What do you make of how things are shaping up for India, and how is that being used to the advantage of India by our government, its ministers there in London and San Francisco? Could you unmute yourself, please?
Thanks, Gautam. I think it's a clear indication in terms of how we are seeing the policy transition that's happening in the country. We are also witnessing how indigeneity element is coming up in our decision making. So if you see what is happening in US with CIM being there, the Commerce and Industry Minister, we are seeing India's new approach on free trade agreements, and our partnership with IPEF is the new confident India, which just few years back was completely reticent in terms of how we approach free trade agreements. But now we have opened up. We have confidence, and we could now bring in the necessary reforms that are needed on trade facilitation, on energy security, or even in government procurement and anti-corruption policies that are needed for IPEF, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, to go forward. So that's a clear indication. With UK, our discussions have moved forward with trade and investment. So this largely is a clear reflection, Gautam, in terms of how the new rising India assertive presidency of G20 has clearly demonstrated our ease and our comfort in terms of deciding how we go forward. And as we have seen, and you rightly mentioned, inflation has gone down. Inflation has gone down because we were able to overthrow the recommendations of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, to do inflation targeting all the time. We targeted growth and compromised with many recommendations that IMF gave us. And that element has given huge strength to our economy. And now we are seeing that with a greater coordination between the government and the Reserve Bank of India, we are now having good results for economy where inflation is low, the liquidity is manageable, and we are seeing continuous expansion in credit and these schemes like PLI, where people are leveraging the strength and exporting. So this has all very clearly shown how confidence of investors, confidence of industry, and also of the financial institutions without compromising fiscal prudence have delivered.
Right. Now, I will come back to what you mentioned, which is the IPEF, because that is something that has a lot of room to be spoken about. But in terms of the inflation data, do you feel that this gives room for the RBI to start scaling back the interest rates that were taken up as well, or will that depend on a lot of other factors, both internal and external, because other central banks are still to start any easing on the interest rate fronts?
I think as far as interest rate easing is concerned, Gautam, three things are always extremely important. First and foremost, in India, we have typically seen the food inflation around this seasonal change that affects and contributes to the crisis that eventually ends up in terms of the supply constraint that we see. The ease of imports and restraint on exports have facilitated our ability to manage inflation. The second point is in terms of greater coordination, as I said, between the RBI and the Ministry of Finance. That has fortunately paid hugely in terms of the success. And third, is in terms of the global liquidity pressures that are there. The Fed has responded the way they are responding, but somehow we have generated a mechanism where we are not too dependent in terms of our own sort of crisis management. And that the point that I was making earlier, that this maneuvering space that we have created for ourselves in terms of both response and also in terms of our ability to bring in the checks and balances that are needed, not to import inflation and not to import the policy prescriptions.
All right. Now, one thing, of course, is that if interest rates come down, then growth can be pushed even further. That's a positive fallout, but let's wait and see if that happens. Now, if we talk about the IPEF, then in terms of its pillars, there is still some hitch where trade is concerned, or on the others, there seem to be much better consensus. So do you feel that this is something that will move forward this time around?
I think it should move forward. All the experts have been advising Ministry of Commerce and Industries to have a very positive response on how trade and investment and also our approach to the three other pillars, including on government procurement, on anti-corruption, trade facilitation. India is at ease in terms of delivering them. And I think India should accept the trade vertical, which all of us are hoping would be done, because largely if we do that, the approach on transparency, accountability that our government has already introduced, we have done away with the protection on government procurement. We are open, and we have allowed foreign firms to also approach government procurement system. And this was one big limitation. Over the years, we have opened up several areas for FDI. So this is being part of QUAD. We are seeing the importance of value chains. We are seeing ability to deliver the disaggregation of production architecture. And globally, Gautam, if we see 72% of the world trade now is in parts and components and semi-finished goods. So you find a huge opportunity for our firms not to do end-to-end, but specialize in some narrow component of the value chain and then deliver that. And that can happen only when we are part of the production networks. And that is the new trend in last 5 or 6 years. It has intensified across economies, and India should be part of that. Prime Minister has been suggesting this to industry. The Commerce and Industry Ministry has taken several measures. I think time has come that in IPEF we see we becoming part of all the pillars and including trade in our portfolio at IPEF.
All right, that sounds great. We'll have to wait and see if that happens, because a lot of people are saying that to take full advantage of what the IPEF offers, all the 4 pillars should be something that one should be seriously looking at, not segregating them and saying that we'll look at something later on. Thank you for joining us to talk about it this evening, Mr. Chaturvedi.